In continuation of my previous cat content video on episode 1 of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime season 3, episode 2 has recently been released, so I'll be covering the content that was removed, such as details about Hinata's internalized thoughts on the Holy Empire of Lubelius, the missing part of the meeting that King Edmaris attended, and some additional world building points as well. As usual, a spoiler warning for anyone that hasn't watched the episode yet or might find the cut content information I've mentioned to be spoilers. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe and share with your friends. Now then, the second episode of Season 3 is called The Saint's Intentions, and it covers the story sequences found in the Volume 7 light novel. And the episode starts with the Moderate Clown Troupe discussing with Yuuki Kagurazaka about the death of Claimant, and the episode does a great job adapting the scene with not much taken out from the light novel, aside from the order in which the conversation takes place. In the light novel, Laplace only mentions his fight with Roy Valentine and how he managed to win after he tried to take the role of a villain and provoke Footman by insulting Claimant, unlike what we saw in the episode. There was also a minor detail about Laplace trying to be modest about defeating Roy that was removed in the episode. In the light novel, the others all knew that he was lying, and even without the handicap of fighting a vampire during a new moon, he could have easily killed a fully powered Roy if he wanted to, because Laplace was said to be second only to Carrion in terms of strength when she was still alive as a Demon Lord. With that said, the episode then shifts to the perspective of Hinata Sakaguchi walking through the streets of the Holy Empire Lubelius, but in contrast to what was shown in the episode, there were some additional world building and story details along with aspects about the internalized thoughts of Hinata from the light novel that were removed from the episode. To explain, when Hinata mentions that Lubelius was a nation with a completely equal society in the episode, the light novel actually goes into more detail about how it was able to achieve this. So essentially, the citizens of Lubelius don't actually make their own choices. Even the distribution of food, wealth, jobs, and education are left to their goddess Luminous, or in this case, the Western Holy Church. However, because of this absolute equality, people have lost their sense of competition and personal identity, simply serving as another cog to the machine. Although Hinata does provide an explanation in the light novel, claiming that despite not having any true freedom, the citizens of Lubelius are all happy as they don't have to worry about starvation or homelessness. Hinata even provided an analogy for this lack of competitiveness, using children being late to school as the example. Basically, in Lubelius, the faster children will try to help the slower children by running together so that they can arrive together, which might cause the both of them to be late. Whereas for children in Ingratia, the faster children will just rush to school by themselves ahead of the others, and the slower children are simply left behind. But Hinata wasn't actually disturbed by this because she actually hopes to create a society where the strong do not prey on the weak, and for her, Lubelius is the place that can help her to achieve this dream. So it was unfortunate that the episode did not adapt this portion of her internalized thoughts, because it would have provided so much context on why she joined the Western Holy Church and the reason for her devotion to Luminous. And Hinata's exposition about the vampires in the episode was the exact same as the light novel, so I don't understand why they did not include the societal aspect of Lubelius I mentioned just now in the episode, because it does correlate to a point about the happier a human is, the more delicious their blood tastes. In any case, another aspect removed from the episode was some of the notable features of Lubelius, such as the highly advanced and powerful barrier that surrounds the capital, constantly providing protection to citizens from not only monsters but the elements as well. The barrier is even capable of controlling the interior climate and weather, making sure the temperature inside is always at a comfortable level for the inhabitants and allow for the production of various seasonal crops regardless of the outside conditions. But that wasn't all. It was also explained in the light novel about the function of the inner sanctum that was located on top of the Spirit Hill. It was considered to be the headquarters of the Holy Church and the residence of Luminous, but its true purpose was to serve as the first line of defense in case Valdora ever attacks Lubelius. Furthermore, the vampire city of Night Garden being located beneath Lubelius wasn't mentioned in the episode as well, and it would have been nice to at least see a glimpse of the city even as a brief cameo. On a side note, I like how the anime is showing different shots of Lubelius as Hinata was going through her thoughts, and even though it's mainly exposition, the episode does a good job at pacing the scene to make it feel interesting and engaging. Having said that, moving on to a flashback about Hinata's past and how she ended up serving in Luminous. Much of the exposition shown in the episode pretty much follows the light novel. Then Hinata's conversation with Luminous also went about the same in the light novel, although the episode doesn't mention how Hinata was able to obtain incredible powers when she participated in the trial of the 7 luminaries by stealing their powers using her unique skill Usurper. Nevertheless, once Hinata finished the trial, she still lost to Luminous and promised to fight for the society of justice and fairness that Luminous established, but she also stated that if Luminous somehow turns into the enemy of mankind, she would not hesitate to personally cut Luminous down in order to maintain her dream. But moving on, when Hinata arrives at the inner sanctum, she is greeted by Luminous Valentine, and the discussion they both had in the episode prior to meeting with Luminous went accordingly as the light novel. However, during the point about the Tema War, the episode doesn't mention what it actually is, so to explain, an army of angels will descend from the heavens to destroy civilization. And because of how fast Rimuru's nation was developing, it might hasten the arrival of the angels, and the world still wasn't ready for a crisis like this. That's why they were so cautious against tempers in the episode. But their conversation ended once Luminous returns from Walpurgis, and they proceeded to discuss about their future plans against Rimuru and Valdora. Although there were not much changes made to the adaptation, what we see and hear in the episode was basically the same as the light novel. Also, I love how Luminous's opinions on Valdora is so terrible, describing him to be this insanely destructive and dangerous force of nature, not realizing that he is just a tsundere whip dragon. Nonetheless, just before that discussion ended, there was a minor detail in the light novel that was not included in the scene, where it reveals that Hinata suspects someone in the Holy Church of being a traitor, and they were likely the ones who gave information to the Eastern Merchant about their caution towards Rimuru. That's why the Eastern Merchant was able to approach Hinata in the first place and inform her that Rimuru was living in Gracia in Season 2, because he knew that the Holy Church viewed Rimuru as a threat. Having covered that part, we then switched to the Falmuth Kingdom, and the meeting that King Edmaris had with his advisors about the peace treaty with Tempest actually happened quite differently in the light novel as compared to the episode. For instance, after Diablo had provided the conditions of the peace treaty and left the Falmuth Kingdom in the previous episode, it actually continues in the light novel with King Edmaris immediately issuing orders to summon all the nobles of the nation for an imperial conference in the next 3 days. But before that, he proceeded to hold a smaller meeting first with some of his most trusted advisors to draft a plan to present to the nobles when the Imperial Conference begins. And it was mentioned that Yom's party was also present during this meeting, although they don't really say anything in the light novel. When the meeting started, King Edmaris had allowed his advisors to discuss among themselves, while he briefly recalls the experience he had to endure when he was kept as a prisoner in Tempest. And he deeply regretted his decision, accepting that everything happening to the Falmuth Kingdom was simply a result of his greed and hubris. Additionally, the light novel provides some extra context on the thought process of King Edmaris as well, and how he ends up with the choice he has made in the episode. To explain, he initially had wanted to go with option 2. He thought it would greatly benefit his people if they became a vassal of the monster nation. However, he also knew that the nobles would not accept this choice, and it would likely cause resentment among the people to consider monsters as their equal, which might lead to further tension that could escalate or rekindle the conflict. And obviously, the third is the worst option for the Falmuth Kingdom. That's why he decided to go with option 1, abdicating from the throne and paying the reparation fees, because he admits that it was his fault to begin with, and he wanted to take responsibility. Another reason is that he already knows about Diablo's plans to eventually crown Yom as the new king, and regardless of whatever option he chooses, all three will still lead to conflict, so he simply decided on the one that will cause the least damage to the Falmuth Kingdom. It was also for this reason that he gave the role of king to his brother Edward, and simply let the Optimates fight to the death with the Royalists because he doesn't want his only son to be involved in this struggle for the throne. With that, King Edmaris will inform his advisors about his desire to abdicate from the throne, and everyone agreed with his choice, so they will be presenting this to the other nobles during the Imperial Conference. This is when we actually get to the scene shown in the episode, because the content they discuss here was supposed to have happened at the Imperial Conference. And it was also supposed to be a bigger affair as well, with all the nobles of the nation gathering, but somehow the episode only included a few individuals such as Edward and Marquis Mueller. Nevertheless, the reaction of the nobles when they hear about the choice of King Edmaris in the episode, constantly making excuses to refuse the peace treaty with Tempest, was practically the same in the light novel as well, although they were more furious in the light novel, with numerous nobles even condemning King Edmaris for his actions, and Edward had joined in to confront his brother as well. That said, the rest of the discussion in the episode happened accordingly to the light novel, and I was surprised Masaki Honjo, the Lightspeed hero, got a mention, and I honestly can't wait to see him being brought into the anime. But I digress. When King Edmaris announces that he is handing over the throne to Edward, the light novel provides some additional perspective on the internalized thoughts of Edward. Basically, he thinks that he can outsmart Rimuru and he'll be able to delay the payment of the reparation fees so that he can reorganize their forces, this time getting help from neighboring countries as well to attack Tempest once more. Furthermore, he plans on invalidating the peace treaty once he takes power and putting the blame on his brother Edmaris, completely oblivious to the fact that he is simply a small, insignificant piece in Diablo's grand performance. Also in the light novel, it was only one soldier that came to deliver news about Rimuru declaring himself a Demon Lord and defeating Claimant to become a member of the Octogram, whereas the episode actually had two soldiers coming, and weirdly enough, I somehow found that to be quite funny. Anyways, in the following scene of the episode, Diablo was the one that attended for the signing of the peace treaty because in the light novel, he did not want Rimuru to attend because it was beneath him and the humans don't deserve to be in the presence of our magnificent slime. Overall, episode 2 was adapted quite well despite having a few story, character and world building details that were left out, and I was impressed they somehow managed to make an episode filled with exposition feel entertaining and interesting. However, I was somewhat disappointed in the way they depicted Luminous, making her seem less bewitching than what I expected, especially the scene where she meets Hinata for the first time. Granted, it could just be me, but what do you guys think of Luminous in the episode, and whether you guys agree with me? I would love to see your comments about her portrayal in the anime. Also, which depiction of Luminous is your favorite? The anime, manga, or light novel version?
そうだとして、わらわの行いが悪かどうか、それを歪小な身で勝手に判断するとは何さ。
But yeah, I definitely enjoyed episode 2, and what are your thoughts on the episode so far? Feel free to share your opinions down below. Also, if you enjoyed this cut content video, remember to leave a like, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button for more cut content videos as well. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.